In today's Farm Report, a new year means new faces in Washington, including over at the U.S. Department of Agriculture, with Chief Economist Joe Glauber retiring. Cindy Zimmerman from AgriPulse has more.
The new year begins with retirement for USDA's Chief Economist Joe Glauber. But before he goes, he has a look at what he thinks 2015 has in store for the agriculture industry.
Over the next year, we're looking at something that looks very, very similar to this year. That is lower prices than what we've seen in the near past. That is, 2007 to 2013, but still higher than what we saw in that first part of that 2000 decade, the 2000 to 2005 level. So, again, I think demand and everything continues to be very strong. We're probably seeing record levels of demand for most commodities this year again. So it means that despite these big record crops, we're still seeing a lot of increase in overall use, which means that stock levels are increasing, but not quite at the rate that you might have thought otherwise.
Glauber reflects on his time with government service, including serving as Deputy Chief Economist for USDA for 15 years, prior to being appointed chief following the retirement of Keith Collins in 2008.
It's been a great job, and I've enjoyed this, and I think particularly with the World Board work, it's been a good job. I can't complain. I'd have to say, I'd say it's the best job, although I always contend that being Deputy Chief Economist was the best job. But no, it's a good job, and it's been, you're working with a lot of different people. I tell you, no year. I've been in this office since 1992. Every year's been different in terms of what issues are big, what issues are important. You clearly are doing things looking at the same issues year in, year out, but like any market, it's a different year, and so that's been great. Keeps you active. This has been a great 30 years here, and I will miss it a lot.
And Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack says USDA will miss Joe Glauber.
I told him privately and I said publicly that I don't think anybody has a higher level of credibility from USDA than Joe Glauber.
USDA's Deputy Chief Economist Robert Johansson has been named acting chief. Johansson has served as USDA's Deputy Chief Economist since 2012. Reporting for AgriPulse, I am Cindy Zimmerman.
It's been just a little over a year since voters in Washington state voted to legalize the growing and selling of marijuana. And for farmers and the people who sell farm inputs,
it's brought a whole new game to town for us to try to figure out.
Gary Farrell owns a farm supply company in Cheney, Washington. He says the state's been certifying farmers to grow pot, but Farrell says most farmers have no idea and hopefully no prior experience in how to grow it.
So they come to us and ask advice as to what type of products should they be using, from fertilizers, or do they need fungicides, or what to do. And we're sitting there going, we don't know.
It turns out the input makers don't seem to know either, and EPA has no chemicals labeled for legal use on marijuana.
So it kind of leaves us with a real problem of what products can we use and not use.
So there's been another glitch. Retail facilities for pot have been opened, but there hasn't been enough to sell. So the marijuana industry is not quite started on the high that was expected in Washington state, but Farrell says it's certainly interesting.
It is.
It is. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Washington.
The beef cattle industry has been trying to rebuild and market itself over the last few years. Cindy Zimmerman with AgriPulse has more.
The governor of Missouri is getting actively involved in helping the beef cattle industry grow in the Show Me state. Governor Jay Nixon convened a summit on Monday to discuss opportunities to maximize the potential of Missouri's beef cattle industry.
It's really about us as a country, making sure that we are living up to our responsibility to feed, fuel, and clothe the world. The marketplace is an international one. I think of this whole thing in basically 3 words: finish, harvest, brand.
Nixon says Missouri has regained its position as the second largest cow-calf state in the country, but it ranks 9th in cattle value.
Once again, second in the nation in number of cow-calves, but 9th in cattle value. Missouri generates approximately $1.9 billion annually in cash receipts for cattle. $1.9 billion, almost $2 billion. That sounds like a lot of money, and it is, but guess what? Our neighboring states that don't have as many cow-calf pairs, generate far more through their cattle operations. Iowa has half as many beef cows as we do, but generates more than double the income. Kansas cattle ranchers earn annual receipts of $7.8 billion a year. Nebraska comes in at a whopping $10.3 billion a year. So what are they doing to rocket up the value of the chain while we stayed steady? I think we all know the answer. These states feed and finish and slaughter far more cattle than we do in Missouri. Analogize it over to a row crop. What we're doing with cattle right now in this state, basically, if you had a corn plant, is you're growing it up. As soon as it tassels, you dig it up, put it on a flatbed truck, and drive it to another state. We need to figure out a way where we can finish more here. And while we're at it, we need to look at ways that we can value add.
Topics at the Beef Cattle Summit included the feasibility of building and operating a large-scale packing plant in Missouri and expanding the number of in-state feeding facilities.
People still around the world, when they really want a good steak, they order a Kansas City strip. There's absolutely no reason why we cannot brand other cuts that are specific to Missouri. Absolutely no reason why we can't brand and prepare certain cuts so we can present Missouri to the world as a place where you get sustainable protein raised and transported in a cost-effective way, and you get specialty cuts second to none.
Reporting for AgriPulse, I'm Cindy Zimmerman.
So you are a farmer that wishes to transfer ownership of the operation to a family member, like a son or daughter. Attorney John Baker of Iowa State University Extension says keep in mind there is a difference between moving assets and moving an entire business generationally.
What assets should be transferred to that younger person? Short-term assets such as breeding livestock and those kinds of things that generate income.
And Baker says
the main thing is for the owning generation to begin this planning early as they possibly can so that they can make the kind of adjustments to their business and their lifestyle that need to be made. The other thing that needs to be recognized is you can't wait until you're 70 and suddenly say, well, now I'm going to retire. Now I'll begin to hand over the management to someone.
As he points out, there may not be a son or daughter or relative available or interested to hand over ownership and operation of the farm at that point. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
Trade continues to be an important issue for the American Farm Bureau Federation, who's holding its annual meeting in San Diego this week. Cindy Zimmerman from AgriPulse has more.
U.S. Trade Representative Darcy Vetter made an informal appearance at the American Farm Bureau annual meeting in San Diego Sunday and stopped to answer some trade-related questions from the media. First, Vetter was asked about the Trans-Pacific Partnership negotiations and Japan's desire to exempt a variety of agricultural products from the agreement.
First of all, I think we're continuing to make progress in our negotiations on the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and we have a ways to go. We're at that point where there's really hard issues that remain at the table, but we're making progress, and we continue to work very hard, both with our Japanese partners and others, to find a way forward that will bring real value to U.S. ag. And I think we'll see a strong agreement on the table at the end of the day. Every single country at the table, Japan, the United States, others, have their own domestic processes that they will have to go through in order to ratify their agreement at the end of the day.
Vetter says she's hopeful that Congress will get Trade Promotion Authority approved this year.
On the TPA front, we're very encouraged by statements made by the new both House and Senate leadership about moving TPA forward. President Obama has made very clear that this is a priority, and there have been good discussions, and we hope to see that legislation going forward very soon this year.
Vetter talked about what the next steps have to be for more normalized trade with Cuba.
Certain restrictions on the financing of products from Cuba have been lifted that should make it easier for us to do business with them, but Congress, of course, would have to fully lift the embargo to move forward. So we're looking at, I think there's some opportunity now for agriculture to have some better relations or more opportunities in Cuba, but we still have a ways to go.
Finally, Vetter says moving U.S. beef in China is a priority for the administration, and they're also working on a pathway toward biotech trait approvals for trade with that country.
We were very pleased to see that China did approve the Viptera trait and unblock what had been a serious restriction on our exports of both corn and dried distillers grains. Pleased to see that, but we do think that there are some improvements that could be made to China's regulatory system that would allow their approvals of biotech products to be more timely, predictable, and to make sure that those approvals are based on science. One of the outcomes of the JCCT meetings we had in Chicago in December was to start a larger dialogue on strategic agricultural innovations, and that includes innovations in technologies like biotechnology. So we look forward to cooperating with China going forward to see if there are ways that we can both make advances in how we approve and adopt agricultural innovation.
Reporting for AgriPulse, I'm Cindy Zimmerman.
A myriad of USDA reports Monday focused on estimated supplies and winter wheat plantings. The first grain stocks report of 2015 noted an upward trend. Corn stocks up 7% in December compared to that same time 1 year prior. Soybean stocks ticked up 17% year to year, and wheat stocks came in at 3% higher than 1 year ago. The first rice stocks report of the new year shows a year-to-year increase in supplies, with rice stocks up 18%, most of that accounted for by long grain varieties. Turning to the winter wheat seeding report, USDA reports plantings are forecasted down 5% from the previous year. That is due to a 12% year-to-year decline in soft red winter plantings and a 3% drop in hard red winter wheat plantings. White winter wheat seeding, however, is reported to be up 2% from this same time last year. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.